Hi, everybody, and welcome to Inside AWAI. This topic is a hot one right now. There's a lot of questions about what's been going on with content and writers in the last few months, and Brian Clark is here to show us a new model for making money as a writer in 2023. It may not be what you think. So it'll be really fun to go over that with Brian. And I just wanted to tell you our goals for today, and then I'll introduce you to Brian. So we want to show you new opportunities that stem from the marketing channel evolution that's been happening over the last few years, where clients are basically, oh, there are 120 channels you should be publishing on. And people are going, where do I begin? So what do clients need now from writers? We're going to go over that. The perks of shifting your business role from copywriter to much more. How to proceed and elevate your career. And then, of course, as always, we'll answer your questions. So first, I wanted to introduce Brian Clark to you. If you don't know him, welcome, Brian.
Hello.
It's such a treat to have you here. I love it. Brian is one of our favorite speakers. He's always ahead of the curve when it comes to content marketing. He was the founder of Copyblogger in 2006, and it evolved into an 8-figure business. He proudly says, without capital and without advertising. So content was certainly king. And now he runs founded and runs 2 other businesses. One is called Further, which I'd love to have you tell us a little bit about. And then the other one is Unemployable. So can you tell us about those 2, Brian?
Yeah, Further is basically an email newsletter that I started during the Copyblogger days when we were doing really well. And it was kind of just a general personal development type stuff I was reading and sharing. And then it morphed into really being specific about serving people at midlife and kind of unique challenges and opportunities that we have. Life's not over is the key message there. It's really just starting to begin. And then Unemployable is our community for everyone ranging from solo freelancers to startup founders. And we basically talk about starting these very small, powerful businesses, which I think is a good overlap with what we're talking about today. So there you have it.
All right, excellent. And Brian has spoken at our boot camps, our summits online on freelancing. He's always on top of what writers should do now to elevate their career and their income. So that's really what today is all about. The big topic is a new model for making money as a writer. So I want to set the stage first before we dive in with Brian and just talk about the classic versus the new for a second. So the classic freelance model, which we've been teaching here at AWAI for 27 years now, which is basically clients pay you as a project work for hire writer. So Pam, can you do 4 blogs a month for me for $500 a post? And then we'll just pay you each post, blah, blah. And that's pretty good. You basically trade your skills for per project fees, and you can set up retainer deals, which is, okay, for the whole rest of the year, I'm going to do 4 blog posts a month, and you'll pay me, $2,000 a month, and we'll just keep going all year. So that's pretty nice, right? That's pretty good. But there is a new elevated way where you can make a lot more. You can bring more value to clients and you can earn more as a writer. So based on what you may already know or you're learning as a copywriter, those skills that you're learning, the skills aren't the only thing that clients need. The writing isn't the only thing. They do need that, but what else can we do? It's really a much better model, a bigger model. And maybe some of you are already doing this, but I think a lot of our audience hasn't really thought about this extra role you can play for clients and really make a difference to their business in a huge way. So I'm going to quickly go over 2 things that I want Brian to chime in on, and then we'll really dig into what his model is for you. The first thing is just really quickly, if you have been paying attention at all, or even if you're brand new to this, I want you to know that in the past, 10 years, gosh, back in the day when I was doing marketing writing in the 80s, we basically had TV, radio, direct mail, and print ads, newspaper ads, that kind of thing. Now there are dozens and dozens and dozens of channels, and it's just exploded. I've seen articles where there are 80 to 100 different ways to promote your business. And just consider a small business that might have a small marketing department, and they're just completely overwhelmed by this. Like, which ones are right for us? How do we navigate this? And really, all digital marketing has become content marketing. There are all these platforms now. They keep growing. A survey on HubSpot, the landscape of B2B marketing is changing. If your team is using old data, you're already falling behind. More than 80% of surveyed B2B marketers said marketing has changed more in the last 3 years than in the last 50 years. So think about that. They're grappling with massive change. Also here at AWAI, we like to show you that continuum of different projects you could be writing for clients from the 4 main stages of a customer journey with a client. So just at the beginning, just becoming aware of the client and the brand. And then the stage 2 is when maybe they signed up for a newsletter and you're starting to lead them toward products they might want to buy. Third stage is they become a buyer, they plunk down their credit card, bada boom, bada bing, they're in. And then the stage 4 is you have to help your client keep those customers happy and loyal and maybe buying more and sticking around for a long time, lifetime customer value. So it doesn't end when they buy. And all of this takes content. So here's what's happening. So that's number 1, evolution number 1. And then evolution number 2 is, of course, the artificial intelligence chatbot explosion, chat GPT, I mean. Boy, I remember first seeing some things about it in November, but then January, February, everyone was talking about it like crazy. 100 million users in 2 months. And the promise was and is from these content generators, we've trained a model called ChatGPT, which interacts in a conversational way with content. So the dialogue format makes it possible to answer follow-up questions, admit its mistakes even, challenge incorrect premises, reject inappropriate requests, and everybody's jumping on the bandwagon to say how to use ChatGPT and other tools for content creation. And that brings the question, what does that mean to writers? So knowing that, there's a big value and service that you can offer to help clients grappling with all of this right now. They're standing there in front of their marketing plan or their marketing VP, and they're just like, where do I begin? All this content. How do I create good content? Is ChatGPT the answer? What are we supposed to create? And this is where I want Brian to jump on in now, because we've been talking about this, and you especially have been talking about how to help clients. So
yeah, I think you did a great job of laying out how massively confused most business people and companies are. And it's especially painful to me because, I started out in 2006 before content marketing even had a name. Right. I'd been doing it since 98. So, my thing to share with the world was, this is what works. And now we're here, however many 17 years later, and content is marketing online, right? It's synonymous with digital marketing, but the misconceptions and the bad ideas have been around almost the entire time, where you have all these channels and people think, oh, we got to post everywhere. And it's content that matters, when it's really the connection with who your ideal prospect. And most companies don't even know who that is. And now we have AI that can crank out content all day long. But I think we're approaching just an accelerated phase of more content, less connection, less clarity, less meaningful results than ever. And while what we're going to talk about today isn't new, I've used it to build every single 7-figure and 8-figure business that I've started in the last 17 years. It is new in the context that I think we need to educate people on how to best serve clients and get paid really well to do it, in addition to then creating content. Whether you want to use the assistance of AI or not is up to you, but the secret sauce AI can't do. And that's how we protect ourselves as writers, content creators from, everyone's, oh, well, it's going to take away all our jobs. No, I actually think for the savvy people, it's going to enhance your status and your authority with clients if you approach it the right way.
Yeah, and the thing is, Nick Usborne, we had a discussion about AI the other day, and it was like, it's a great tool. It's like if you use spell check and those kinds of things, it's another tool. It gives you ideas, but it is robotic, and it is the same for everyone. So a quick example, I do a lot of local marketing help, and I said, chatbot, give me an about us page copy for a local Greek restaurant. Our family-owned Greek restaurant serves all kinds of things, and we have al fresco dining. Okay, give me an about us page for an Italian restaurant. Our family-owned Italian restaurant serves all these different foods and has al fresco dining. Give me one for a chiropractor. Our family-owned chiropractic firm offers, it was the same. Every single content prompt I gave them, I just changed the business, and it was basically the same. So if you think about your clients, if you work with local clients, they can't put if everybody in town uses ChatGPT, they will all sound exactly the same. So our job is to bring nuanced, intelligent, really focused, customer-friendly content to life that is unique for that business. What can your client do that the other guys in town can't? And that just goes to every category out there, from software to vet equipment to everything. So ChatGPT is not, I hope clients are beginning to understand, it's not a fix-all. But
well, Jonathan just made the comment that, your prompt determines your response. But I don't think the average client knows how to write a prompt in the first place.
Right.
Number two, I'm in no way denigrating AI. It's going to get better and better and better.
Sure.
But I think Jonathan's point really is to the essence here. Most clients, probably all, and most freelance writers don't understand what you really need to be prompting for. And
Right.
It's much more counterintuitive and involved, and it needs to be figured out before you can effectively create really compelling, engaging content that connects with the right people. Not everyone,
Right.
the right people.
Yeah. Well, the big deal is how does overall, the big picture, how does a company know what content to create in the first place? So like, okay, I can go to AI and create some content, but which content theme or direction will work? And what's the best format? There are so many channels, right? Should it be email, blogging, white papers, case studies? What's the best vehicle for the audience I'm trying to reach? And then what should it say to resonate? How does it support a fluid buyer's journey through those 4 stages? And it's cyclical and ongoing. And then the big question is, how does the client stand apart from their competition with this
Right.
barrage of content out there and get noticed people to go, oh, I want to go with these guys? So your role, drum roll, is they need a content marketing strategist. And this is something you can provide as a consultant, which guides clients through this maze. And really, Brian said it future-proofs you. It no matter what's changing or evolving with channels and chat and all those things, you can future-proof your life with this master key skill, which Brian's going to go through right now, which I can't wait to hear what this is all about.
Yeah, and again, it's important to note that all of this was true before AI emerged.
True.
And very few people were doing it. So this has been a need and an approach that I have ever since I've been speaking at AWAI events. I'm always like, don't just sell yourself short. Yes, you're a writer. I know you wanted to make a living with words, but the fact here is that clients don't care about writing. They don't care about strategy until you make them care.
Yeah.
All they care about is results, right? So you need to position yourself as someone who is going to come in and say, let's grow your revenue and profits. Oh, great. How do we do that? Well, first we need a strategy. Makes sense, right? Yes. And then we're going to implement the strategy, and I can help you with that too. You're getting paid every step of the way instead of we need 4 blog posts. Okay, why? What's your objective here? Who are you trying to reach? Who's your ideal customer, right? And you talk to most clients and they have no idea. They have no idea. And that is the missing element. I don't start a new project or company without going through all the steps of the strategy that we're going to talk about here today, because I would fail.
Right.
But we go to clients and we give them some blog posts and they wonder why it's not working and they blame you. Well, we don't want that for sure. So why not earn more by making sure that your clients succeed with you, right? And that's really the essence of what we're talking about.
Yep. And you recently published a document about this, and I wanted to go through this story that you presented in your document because it's really intriguing and relatable to this. So if you don't mind going through that.
Yeah. So this was actually in 2020 when GPT-2, we're now on 4.
Yeah.
GPT-2 came out. It's a large language model, AI, which is a fancy way of saying it creates content. And so even then, people who were paying attention are like, oh, we're doomed. And so I wrote about it and said, look, this is coming. And, it took, it was the end of last year and the beginning of this year where everyone was like, oh, he was right. But yeah, you could see it coming. And this was, to me, an opportunity to really talk about what great copywriters, what great ad people like David Ogilvy knew way back when, way before we even used personal computers.
Right.
And that is that if, most, again, the writer's life, that's what we talk about at AWAI. And honestly, that's why I quit the practice of law, because I was really attracted to making a living with writing. But let's face it, I wanted the writer's lifestyle, right? Well, you can have it. It's just a little bit maybe different than you imagined.
Right.
And so a lot of people get into writing, and these are the people that I call poets. It's all about the words. It's all about a range, the way a certain sentence is constructed will cause someone like us to reread a sentence more than just the content, because we really appreciate words and how sentences work and how paragraphs work and all of that. Most people don't care. Most people couldn't even spot a good sentence. What they care about, as I mentioned, is they want to make more money. So going back even to the 1960s, David Ogilvy recounted an anecdote from another ad guy. And he basically said, good copywriters fall into 2 categories. And copywriter these days can mean content marketing. It's just, like you said, it's a continuum between content, copy, right, and it's all one buyer's journey that requires a strategy, right? But so he said most good copywriters fall into 2 categories: poets and killers. Poets see an ad as an end, killers as a mean to the end. What does that mean to be a killer? Well, it means that you have a strategic end in mind that you're trying to achieve, rather than just appreciating stringing words together for their own sake. And then Ogilvy added to it, and he said, if you're both a killer and a poet, then you get rich, right? Plenty of killers out there who don't have your appreciation for language and words, because it does matter, right? And plenty of poets who were like, oh, I don't want, I'm not into the strategy. I'm not into the business part. I just write. Well, my premise back in 2020 was the poets who don't become killers also are not long for this world because AI will get better and better and better. And here we are 3 years later. And that's exactly what's happening. Now think about 3 years from now and 5 years from now, as AI continues to get better, it'll be the poets and the killers who use the tools combined with effective strategy that will not only make the most money, but survive in general, right?
Right. And, there are lots of companies of all sizes that are on top of strategy. They live and breathe strategy. They get it. But I can tell you, I've worked with big companies, big corporations, and I've audited their web content for them. And we have no idea what they do, actually. The content is not exactly explaining to the visitor. They use something like, we've been around for 100 years, or a whole new world of corporate cleaning, or just crazy, meaningless content. And so we can come and ask them, what are you here for? Who are you here for? What do they need from you? Why
Right.
are you the best company out there? We start.
Unfortunately, most companies' idea of strategy is a topic and a demographic profile.
Right.
And
Right.
that tells you nothing about a real human being.
Right.
My favorite example of how worthless demographics are is you've got two guys. They're both born in 1948. They both live in the UK. They both happen to live in castles, right? One of them is Ozzy Osbourne and the other one is King Charles.
Yep.
Now, would you market to these two guys the same way? No, you need to know their values, their attitudes and lifestyles, which is what we call psychographic profiling. And now we're getting closer to a strategic approach. Unfortunately, it's just missing from so many people
So many companies
trying to do content marketing. And then again, they crank out a bunch of content. They think they're only trying to make Google happy. Half the time that doesn't even work. Even when it does, they get traffic, but it doesn't convert because it's not speaking the right language to the right people.
Right. So you talked about in your paper about the content creator as hybrid marketer. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, this was my friend Jason Miller, who worked at LinkedIn for a bit. He basically said, no one is just a poet anymore, right? We're all writers in the content marketing world, but you have to have something more. That could be analytics, that could be a specialization in conversion copywriting, that could be a number of things, because in digital marketing, we wear a lot of hats in order. Again, the whole idea that you can just write and really thrive is an illusion. I mean, again, going back to the great direct mail copywriters, some of which have been featured by AWAI over the years, the amount of research, preparation, and strategy that goes into before they wrote a word of that sales letter is what you have to do with content marketing too. But somehow that got lost. Yeah. Somehow you could just create content and it's magical. No, it doesn't work that way at all. So
yeah,
my argument is that you need at least one other strong skill in addition to writing. And in the age of AI and a lot more automated technology, technology is for tactics, but strategy is the human element. And that's why I always say, okay, position yourself as more than a writer. You're a marketing or growth consultant. And that means you bring strategy, then you bring execution. And that's all that is figuring out what you should write and then writing it. But it's a magical combination when it comes to getting results for clients where they want to keep paying you, which is the key to those lucrative retainer agreements, in addition to the upfront fee that you get.
Right. And I have found that too, that sometimes even by default, because a lot of clients don't know how any of this works, like let's say you offer to do a content audit. I do a lot of website content audits and I have a 21-point checklist. Is there a headline? Is there a call to action? Things like that. And they go, wow, I never thought of any of this. I'm telling you, so many companies don't even know what they're missing or how to begin.
And that's why I think the the odds of your local plumber or Italian restaurant effectively using ChatGPT to put you out of business. Some may try,
Yeah.
but it's not going to work. I can tell you that right now. And this is no different than the same people trying to get the cheapest offshore writers from Fiverr.
Yeah.
You know, at least ChatGPT has proper grammar. Okay. I mean, we're making progress, but
Yeah.
proper grammar doesn't convert people. It's the right engagement, emotional touch points, all of this stuff that comes from developing a really sound strategy.
Right. And I always think of ChatGPT mainly in my head as facts, just the facts, ma'am. But
Yes.
there's no like story in there.
Information does not convert, story converts, connection converts, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've written for a veterinary equipment manufacturer, and they went into a practice one day and saw the staff lifting heavy dogs into the tubs and stuff. And they invented this ramp with, you can take a Great Dane and just stroll them on up into the tub and save your back and everything. That is a story, and ChatGPT doesn't have that. So you can bring stories to life that matter to the audience. And just, robotic, great tool, awesome, help me come up with some bullet ideas, but really the human element is still the most.
And I'm glad you brought up story because, there's all sorts of levels of story. We have the once upon a time kind of storytelling. We've got metaphors, we've got analogies, we've got pop culture references, which I love to use. But if you use the wrong ones, it's almost worse than nothing at all, because you managed to drive someone off that you were actually trying to attract, because you don't know. If you know someone and you see them after a long time at a cocktail party, you speak to them differently than you might someone you don't know, or your mom, or just another person who has different proclivities, right? Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't that remain the same when we're speaking to an audience of prospects? It is the same, right? But somehow we get divorced that, the internet's not like real life, but it's still people. We're still dealing with people. That's the important element.
Well, that also speaks to, a lot of people ask me if business to business content is different than business to consumer. And sure, the platform might be a little different because the lead time is long with a business to business buying decision, because quite often it's either really expensive equipment they're buying or changing the way they run their office. Those are huge decisions versus I'll take those shoes. But it's all human though. The business buyer, right, in a B company has pressure to perform, pressure to, find a solution for data security things. These are big emotional things. So it's still emotional as much as it is, planning the perfect wedding, which is a consumer thing.
Such a misconception to think that B2B is somehow devoid of emotion.
Right.
Remember the old saying, this goes back decades, but no one ever got fired for going with IBM, right? Because that's how decisions are made. Am I going to get fired? Or am I going to get praise or a promotion? These are very, very emotional decisions just within the framework of a corporate environment. Mm-hmm. And you have to understand that environment, but you're still dealing with people.
Yep.
So it maybe even more so, because I can make my own decisions, but up there you got to impress your boss and your team and the board and, all of these kind of considerations.
And you're very unlikely to have any individual decision making. You are going to guide a decision, but you may have to present the white paper you found or these other things and bring them to a group that's going to decide. So that is, I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but we do get that question a lot. Like, are you just talking about consumer marketing or business marketing? It's all the same. It's human.
My strategy is used for me in B to small b, small business, B2B, and B2C. It's the same because people are the same. People are the same across the board, but groups of people are different. And that's really the key here, which is you're trying to speak to a certain type of person, right? Not everyone, which makes for bland, boring, robotic content.
Yep. Awesome. So what do you mean by killer strategy skills? You mentioned it a little bit, but can you dig deeper onto what writers can develop as killer skills?
Yeah. So to become a killer in the context of strategy just means that you appreciate writing as an end to itself, but you understand that strategy involves an objective, and your clients don't care about the words or the content or any of it as long as they get the results they're looking for. Now, of course, that can differ from client to client in the particulars, but most of all, they want to make more money for the business. That's what marketing is supposed to do. More leads for the sales team if it's a bigger enterprise. More conversions on the website if it's a digital business. That is what they're looking for. And that's what content marketing has done better than anything over the last 25 years, because essentially that's what works online. But it's not, as you astutely pointed out, it's not information. Information is what people are seeking, and persuasion in a very value-oriented way is what we're delivering if we're doing content marketing correctly. So that's what I mean by killer strategy skills. You never lose sight of the objective, no matter how dazzled you are by your clever play on words that the client may not even get.
I always go for direct,
Yeah.
Direct benefit, stick around. We're going to solve your need better than anybody else. But okay. So before we jump into like what framework is for helping a client think about the strategy, I just wanted to mention that what Brian is talking about is a skill that if you understand the bigger picture of the why, you can walk into a business and walk out with $5,000 in a consulting contract. You haven't even written copy yet. You're going to help them figure out the most important things they need to before they write any copy or publish anything. And you earn a lot of money then after that with writing skills you already have. So let's say somebody talks about a blog, you're like, as Brian said, why are we blogging? Who are we blogging to? What do they care about? How can we write something that's mind-blowingly helpful and unique? And bringing in traffic. Those are skills that you have, but then you elevate to the whole reason why. You also end the get clients struggle. And I'd love you to talk about this one, Brian. Instead, you're going to get clients to approach you wanting to hire you at a premium. How does that work?
Well, effectively, everyone should be practicing what they preach. If you're not using content to attract clients, build an audience of prospects so you've always got a steady pipeline coming in, I'm not sure why someone would hire you to do that for them. And this is another disconnect that we often see. If you create content, attract an audience, and from that approach, clients come to you to hire you, they are sold that this approach works and you're the right person. Why? Because it worked on them, right? And everyone is a savvy, smart person, of course, in their own minds, but generally as well, that, hey, this actually resonates. This person is good. This approach they're using of using content to get me to contact them and do a consultation that leads to an engagement, you've basically knocked down the biggest objections you could possibly have when you go in and say, so you want to know what I did to get you as a client. Well, first I start with a strategy, and it entails these very important elements. And from these elements, we will craft a buyer's journey that will resonate with the right people and will make more money. It's as simple as that. But I think it's important that we practice what we preach. And of course, that was Copyblogger's thing the whole time. We built an 8-figure software company, basically doing to our prospects what we taught them to do.
That's great. And back when I owned a website called petcopywriter.com, and I have since sold it. But at the time, my strategy was to focus on that market, veterinary and pet, and just all the content I put out was about helping them. Like, is your veterinary website mobile friendly? Here are 3 things you have to do. And I would just keep posting content like that. And then I'd get a lead and they would say, we're looking for an experienced pet copywriter, but do you really know SEO? And I would say, how did you find me?
Right. Did you come here
I
from
could-
Google by any chance?
Funny how that works. So, and that started out with my personal strategy to be in that niche and help that niche as much as I could with what's going on in the world of marketing. And so that is something I love what Brian said about that. You're like, how are you strategically going to market yourself and attract the clients you want to work with? So that's part of this, because then you are practicing what you preach. Exactly. Putting forward what you believe works.
And you can't sell strategy to clients if you don't have clients. So rule number 1, we're gonna develop your strategy, but fortunately, it's the same process for you and for clients.
Yep. And I thought that this final bullet here is you can build a 6 or 7 figure income as a content marketing strategist without even needing to learn more writing skills. Because as an AWAI member, I'm sure you have some writing skills and you've been evolving and growing and becoming a stronger writer for different kinds of projects. But that big picture strategic element of this is the big value to clients, the biggest value you can offer clients. So I just want to talk about that value for a second, because you might be thinking, you guys, how can I earn $5,000 per client? I mean, what does that actually look like? So Brian, chime in, but you're going to be crafting a buyer's journey and you're going to think about who they are, what they need. We'll talk about this in more detail in a minute, but once you really understand that client's prospect, then you can use your creativity, your writing know-how, and then that bigger marketing knowledge to really help them stand apart and get those leads and sales. And only you, a human, can do that. So
right. And one of the key things here is that as an outsider to the organization, and we've got stories dating back to the 1920s about how someone like Claude Hopkins will go into the Schlitz brewery and spot the winning difference that took them to number 1 in the market from 5th place. It was something they took for granted. So the first thing we do is we go in and we explore the client's business, and sometimes something will leap out at you. It may be from talking to the executive team or the founder. It may come when you're talking to their clients or customers, but there'll be something so obvious, such an obvious pattern that this is the angle and this is your ideal prospect, that you can discover it that way. But one way or another, it all comes down. Everything flows out of who are we trying to reach? How did they see the world? And what values do we have in common that we can communicate and engage with them with? So when it comes down to it, the truism is knowing your customer is more than half the battle. Knowing, and then everything flows from that. So how could you possibly choose which words to use, which stories to tell, which metaphors, which references, all of the things that make information into persuasive content? You have no clue. Now, there are people I know that have started their own thing as bloggers or what have you, who've gotten incredibly lucky. They were just themselves and people showed up and resonated with them. Sometimes that works. I've had friends who have attracted an audience who attracted a bunch of people, but they didn't want to buy anything. So that was a lack of strategic approach, right? So people, clients especially, we need an audience. That's all they know. We need content. That's all they know. What's the actual objective that we're trying to get? And what are the step-by-step elements that we need to get there? And that's worth a lot of money. Now, there are strategists like in my consulting firm, we charge $10,000 to do this, right? But I've got a bit of a track record. But
Yeah.
$5,000 is kind of the
Yep.
fee, right? I mean,
Right.
I never heard of anyone who will develop a documented content marketing strategy for less than $5,000.
Right.
Now, over time, you'll be able to move up, but that's not a bad starting space, right?
Right.
Especially since at the end of your strategy implementation, you're saying, okay, now you need someone to implement this for you. I can do that as well.
Right.
Now, this is how a lot of solo freelancers start agencies. You may not be interested in that, but you can, because when you go in as a strategist and then you need to implement and you're getting paid $5,000 every month, well, after a minute, you can hire other writers who are not as good a marketer as you to do the work while you continue to accumulate clients, eventually raise your fees, all of that good stuff.
Yep. So this is just an example of what you might deliver as a content strategist to your clients. After going through an exercise with a creative brief, for example, which is who is your audience? What do they care about? How are you stacking up against the competition? What can you say that's unique? All that good stuff. Then you come to them and say, given your audience and this offer that you want to present to them, I think the best way to move them along the buyer's journey is X, Y, and Z. Forget the 120,000 channels, but focus on these 5, because we know that's where your audience is. Where X can be a social media post offering a free report, Y can be an opt-in page where they enter that email. So then you have them in your opt-in list. And then Z is an email follow-up series or newsletters with offers. So you can only suggest that if you understand that scope. And like Brian said, so many times clients can't even answer the questions you have on your creative brief. And even that is a consultative thing. Like, I'm not going to just send my creative brief to you and you fill it in. No, we're going to consult together so you can answer questions that you may not have actually thought about in a while, or you may need to grab your head salesperson and go over it with them. Like, what's the tipping point for people to buy from us?
Yeah. And if you don't really know who your ideal prospect is,
right,
then that's how you determine out of all these platforms and channels where to focus.
Right.
And the honest advice here is you should be focusing on 1, maybe 2 tops, right? So how do you make that decision? Well, you really know who your people are and you know where they hang out, and you know what kind of content that they probably prefer. For example, a lot of people see, well, we got to make TikTok videos or we got to make YouTube videos. That's the hot thing. Well, what if I would have thought that way when I started Copyblogger with an audience of writers who like to read? When we were really early moving into podcasting at Copyblogger back in 2010, and while people enjoyed our podcast, it never achieved the success that our written articles did because writers prefer to read. And they told us that over and over again. So we tried something new, but when it came down to it, we knew our audience liked to read, and therefore we did that. And yet, if you don't have that basic understanding, and that's a very simple example, it can be much more complicated, but once you dig into it, you'll realize this is how this type of person prefers to consume information. And therefore this platform, Twitter or whatnot, over Instagram Reels, is the proper choice.
Right.
So it really all does flow from that really detailed understanding.
And one thing you and I talked about, Brian, is that a lot of newer writers, and a lot of clients, they just have this kind of tactics list. Okay, we know we need to create YouTube videos. So can you help us with that? And that is a tactic, not a strategy. Right. Until you have a strategy, what is the YouTube video going to say? Right? Yeah.
No, so a lot of people do prefer video. So let's assume that you have a prospect that is like most people and enjoys consuming educational information by video. Okay, great. We're going to make YouTube videos, but that doesn't tell you anything about what you have to say and how you're going to say it based on who you're trying to reach. So this is the content, right? The content has to be according to strategy. A YouTube video is just a tactical way to deliver that content to a person. The important thing really is within the content. Unfortunately, clients and even a lot of freelance writers think of content as something that basically fills up a page or is just, you know, the video itself. The video is irrelevant except for as a delivery mechanism.
Right.
What you say and how you say it is the key.
Mm-hmm. So I love this. You gave us 3 simple tenets to being a highly valued, highly paid content marketing strategist. And that all boils down to these 3 things. And you've already said this, but it's worth repeating. The audience is number 1. Who are we talking to?
Yeah, these 3 tenets go all the way back to the earliest days of offline direct marketing. And that's what digital so people get confused and think we're dealing with completely different animals. When I started Copyblogger, I recognized, no, we're doing direct marketing. The internet is a direct marketing medium. And all that means is you get to talk to people directly, not through intermediaries. And yet the big platforms keep trying to interject themselves and make them indispensable in between you and the customer, which is why email marketing is still the strongest sales channel. And it's completely just you and them as long as you can get them on the list. But once you do that, that's your most valuable business asset, as long as you know what to say and how to say it once you've got your ideal prospect on that list. So yes, audience is almost half the battle, but we do have other elements that have to be there to have a successful business. But the great thing about these 3 things is it takes kind of this esoteric strategy thing that seems kind of mysterious and just, this is it. You need to attract the right audience. Then you got to know what to offer them. And that the offer is really a multi-stage process here. You know, in traditional copywriting and direct marketing terms, we think of offer as what you're selling and the terms and conditions and the bonuses and the guarantee and all that. That is your selling offer. But all the way along the line, here's an offer to click on a result in Google based on the headline in the description. Here's an offer in a Facebook ad to click and find out more. Here's a landing page with an opt-in with all the copy, bullet points, fascinations, what have you, that get people to opt in. Here is the delivery of our buyer journey content that leads them along. And next thing you know, maybe we have an initial offer. Maybe we've got an ascension sales model where we start off with something low priced, they buy that, and then we make an offer for the next level thing, right? So really we're in the business of making a series of offers to the right audience. And then how do you make those offers? That's the copy, the content. Again, the original premise of Copyblogger is it's not content and copy, it's a continuum. And I love that you had that graphic that shows that it's all designed to be part of the sales process. The beauty about content is, though, people don't feel sold at all, even though they're being, all the elements of persuasion are there as they're moving along the path. That's why it's a journey. That's why the buyer's journey metaphor is so apt for this kind of stuff, right? So yes, when you finally get down to it, you know who you're talking to and what you have to offer them, but then there's the important thing that comes down to how. Going back to our guy, David Ogilvy, he said, what you say is more important than how you say it. But once you get that right, how you say it makes all the difference, right? And that's what we do as copywriters and persuasive content creators.
Great. And we have several questions piling up that I want to get to, but first, let's finish up the discussion here with, if this is intriguing to you guys, we want to talk a little bit about how to get started. And Brian kind of tipped his hat a little bit already. Craft a marketing strategy for your own business. Like, who are you trying to reach? What's your message, and how will you connect with them? I just wanted to show you guys, if you don't know Steve Maurer, you will. Steve, hello, I think you're here with us. Steve set out as a freelancer. Now, he was working full-time in an industrial manufacturing capacity, and he had been in that world for 30 years, 30 plus years. And so he, one day, as he was trying to leap out into freelance world, said, who are my customers? Who do I want to reach? And who do I want to work with? And he's like, duh, how about the industrial manufacturing world? Because I know that world like the back of my hand. So his strategy was to position himself through all of his content. I'm just showing you his LinkedIn profile here. But he basically says, I can help you talk directly to your ideal industrial customer because I've been one. And he, 36 years, I've been your ideal customer. So I am uniquely qualified to help you be the trusted guide and resource your customers need. So who is more authentic than Steve for that world? And everything he puts out there is for clients in that world. And that's a strategic decision. So like I did with Pet Copywriter, like Steve did with his industrial manufacturing angle, what do you offer? And who can you work with? We have a free Inside AWAI session on how to choose a niche market for your business. And it's really worthwhile thinking about that, because then you know who you're talking to, what the message should be, what would resonate with them. And so that's where we want you to start, is just thinking about how you're going to market yourself to bring in clients that go, wow, this person understands the whole strategic approach. Brian, I don't know if you want to jump in on that.
Well, I just Steve is a great example. He's a great guy. But even more than just choosing that niche, Steve knows how to talk to these people, right? He knows how they see the world. Now, that kind of experience is invaluable. He can just be his authentic self because he's this guy. But when you're coming in for a client who's in a completely different world, right, then you have to be able to have a framework that allows you to understand their people, their language, their worldview. And again, that's what this does. But, and I just want to say that even within any niche, people are like, I got to find something that no one else is doing. No, go into a big competitive market with lots of money being spent, and then be uniquely you for a certain type of person, which is a more granular thing than just the big, broad, pet copywriting thing, right? You're talking to people as you. The great thing about my process is you actually don't have to be some kind of fake marketing, type to attract people. In fact, you're better off understanding yourself at such a level that you also resonate with the right people. So the four elements basically come down to, we've kind of touched on how and what and who and all of that. And it comes down to these other neat names I have for this. But the one thing we haven't talked about yet is mission. And that's why. Mm-hmm. Why you do what you do, whether it be you as a freelance writer or your client who manufactures industrial widgets, why they're in the business can be an incredibly compelling thing to prospects when making a decision among different choices. So Simon Sinek wrote a book, The Power of Why, and he had this great quote in his TED Talk. It basically like, people want to do business with you based on what you believe, why you do what you do. And that's a very powerful thing that both, I think, writers fail to appreciate, and certainly clients. And you can help clients with it, but you've got to figure it out for yourself.
Right.
Now, a why for you is not, well, I wanted to be a novelist, but I figured I'd just, take some money from businesses doing marketing. That's not a good why. A better why is, I believe in the power of language to change the world, and I believe every business has the ability to do that within their industry or niche. That something along those lines, right? Yep. You can connect with people at a much more meaningful level with a mission statement. Now, you don't have to say my mission is, right? You don't have to. Some people do that. Sometimes it gets kind of hokey. I've seen certain gurus who will give people a framework and then everyone regurgitates it exactly. I'm like, no, you're trying to be different. Don't do exactly what everyone else is doing. But so it's very personal to you. Yeah. When you develop your why. Tribe just means, okay, who are the people I'm trying to reach? How do they see the world? What do they all have in common? Mm-hmm. All people are different. But as we can see, when we have groups, especially on the internet, it gets very tribal, sometimes in good ways and sometimes in bad ways. But these people have unified worldviews. They see the world the same way. If you can connect with people because you also share that worldview, much like Steve did, mm-hmm. then it's so much easier. You're being you, but you're connecting with people in a very real way. Okay. Right. Yep. The journey, we've said several times, talked about the buyer's journey. Mm-hmm. Effectively, in their own mind, the prospect, the future customer, is the hero of their own story. They've got a problem and they're looking for someone to help them solve the problem. Yep. And so we effectively, as a writer, will put yourself into the role of being their mentor, their guide. You're going to say, hey, I understand your problem. I know how to do this, and I'm going to take you along and teach you how to do this. And when we get to the end, all of a sudden, I'm going to be the only natural choice for you to hire to do this project. That's a successful buyer's journey. You're not the hero, but you become a hero to them when you solve their problems, right? Yep. And then story is what we've been talking about, the traditional how. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who study copywriting skip right over the other three things, and then they're all focused on how they say it with the right. These are the poets, right? Well, your poet self gets to come in when we tell the story, but only after you have the groundwork laid with the other three elements. And then it just all comes. You're not guessing anymore. Right. You know what hook, you know what angle, you know what story to tell. That's what we're talking about there. If you can map out and document, I really highly suggest, you're all writers, should have no problem writing this stuff down. But here's the scary fact. Less than half of people doing content marketing, businesses, B2B, B2C, what have you, most of them don't even have a documented content strategy. So that's the opportunity. Those that do have a documented content strategy, it's usually bad. It's insufficient. It's based on those demographics. Right. They're trying to market to Ozzy Osbourne like he's King Charles. And they're wondering, oh, this content marketing thing doesn't work. It absolutely works. Yep. If you know who you're talking to and act accordingly. Yep.
Now, I wanted to talk about the fact that, you guys in the audience know that we have tons of Inside AWAI sessions on how to get clients, how to do different skill sets. And we also have programs on different content writing skills. But we haven't really done a self-study program on being the strategist. And so I wanted to let you know that Brian is about to launch one, and it's called the Brian Clark Method. He has offered this before, but not like the 2023 version. There are several nuances that are different for today's market, today's world, today's clients who are just, their heads are spinning right now over everything going on and they need your help. So I'm going to leave that link up. And Brian, I don't know if you want to chime in on what the program is all about, and is there a client getting component to it? Because we do have questions about how difficult is it to convince a client to help them realize they need a strategy, or there are lots of agencies out there that offer strategies. How do I, the sole freelancer, come in and offer strategy as well.
Right.
So your program
So
support.
yes, I've been trying to, I've been refining my approach to teaching others how to do what I naturally do. You know, a lot of people are very kind and will say that I'm a really good writer. I think I'm an okay writer, but strategy is why I win, you know, why I build businesses while others create content that goes nowhere. So this is not something I just started thinking about. It's been a good decade.
Yeah.
But really what's different about this time is what we talked about and what I predicted in 2020, that we're in a completely different environment. AI is a tool for the strategic minded content marketer, and it's a death sentence to those who think they're in the business of creating information as content, right? The robots can do that. And if that's what clients are looking for, they can do that. But the strategic content marketer will actually have clients who succeed. And getting back to what you said, you know, how do you sell strategy? Often you don't. And I tried to make this a point throughout the presentation by saying there are people who, you know, a lot of people who subscribe to a strategy first consulting or coaching approach, but they sell growth, right? That's what they sell, what the client really wants. And that is an aspect of understanding your prospect better than they understand themselves, because you've given it more thought, right? So whenever anyone asks me, well, how am I going to do this? I'm like, you've going to, first of all, I'm going to teach you how to develop your own strategy. And here's the good thing. In this case, what you do for marketing is also what you sell, right? You can also use the process with every client, any type of client. There is not, it's not just digital. It's not just B2B. It's not just B2C. It is a rock solid strategy that will help anyone create the right type of content for the right type of people. So it's kind of I don't want to say a business in a box, because I hate that kind of hypey stuff. But when someone tells you how to build a business and also gives you what you're selling, those are the elements right there, right? You're going to, I'm going to show you how to build an audience with your strategy. We're going to develop your offer through your strategy, and you're going to know how to communicate. So it covers audience, offer, and content or copy for you, but also that's what you're selling and doing to add value for your clients. So that's kind of my very, very short, in a nutshell, explanation of what we're doing. And it's not self-study. I'm there with you. I'm going to explain everything. We're going to have real world assignments. We're going to grade them for you and let you know how you're doing, give you feedback. This is not where you're just being left out there with some videos to figure it out for yourself. We're going to walk you through the whole thing.
Okay. And one of the questions we have is about personas. And is that going to be part of your strategic path, you know, developing the persona for your own business as a freelancer, but also to help clients do that?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people have heard of buyer personas. I use a little bit different terminology because we're really starting at the audience level and leading them on the journey to become buyers. So I call it an audience archetype, but it means the same thing in the sense that these people are unified in how they see the world, what they value, and because of that, they connect with me. Now, this is the biggest improvement that I've made in the years of trying to teach people this. Generally, I gave a bunch of instruction and some ideas, things like empathy mapping and whatnot. And then I said, okay, go write your archetype, go write a narrative about your perfect customer. And for some people, that was great. They just ran with it and did it. And other people had the blank page terror, right? It even happens to writers, right? Where you're just like, I don't know how to start. So this time, for the first time ever, with AWAI, I've created psychographic profiles that represent each element of the population in 6 different types, right?
Wow.
And there's some very important distinctions that I'll teach you about from the get-go. 2 different types of people within those 6 profiles. And if you try to market one way to the wrong group, you will fail spectacularly. So number one, we're going to avoid that. But then we're basically going to say, okay, find yourself in one of these profiles. And it's so much fun exercise for people because people do it. They see who they are.
Yeah.
When I did this with a group of people at Unemployable, I predicted to them that the majority of them would be a certain type of person. And when it turned out after they found themselves, they're like, you're right. How did you know that? Like, because I used a strategy on you to attract people like me. And that's what I am. And just people like, their minds are blown. I'm like, right. So I can just be me and connect with you strongly. And you had no idea that that's what was going on. So it's really cool. And it really gives you a running start on creating your own unique thing. You still should do the work. It's very important to make it uniquely yours.
Right.
But having a starting point and having these example profiles has been the biggest win, I think, for the light bulbs going off for people. Because once you have that persona or archetype, everything else just flows out of it. The buyer journey, the story, right?
Yeah.
All of it comes together.
Cool. And how much time would you say, once they've gone through this program, does it take to develop a strategy for clients in general? Hours and hours, tons of interviews, or what does that actually look like?
Generally, you want to, the way we talk about it is we like to be able to develop a documented strategy for our clients within 30 days, but we hedge with an extra 45, an extra 15 days for a total of 45, because we do like to do, customer or client interviews and whatnot, because often you'll find that hidden gem in something several customers say. It's voice of customer stuff, which we talk about in the course. But yeah, so basically think of it this way. Your first month engagement is for $5,000. And then at the end of it, you're going to have a recommendation for implementation. And one would hope that you continue making that level of money, if not more, based on the strategy you have to implement. Okay, and what does the end document look like, or what your deliverable is? It's really those elements that I told you, where you just walk through the mission. Here's what the client stands for. And this is the congruency we've found with that mission with your best customers. Who is the meat of it with the persona that you always keep in mind when you're communicating with your prospects. And again, this hopefully will be you or people who work for you who are implementing the strategy. So in many ways, you're developing a strategy for them that allows you to have an easier job and more successful results. So think about it that way. Again, I see poor content writers getting, yelled at and fired because they didn't get results from a client who has no idea who they're talking to or what they're trying to achieve. That's not your fault, but it can be your fault if you don't say, hey, we need to take a step back here and figure out what we're doing. And that can be your foot in the door. If they're trying to hire you in a traditional writer role, you can say, okay, we got to start with strategy in order to meet your growth goals. And it's very important to talk in terms of their business objectives, right? That's what they care about. Yep. And you know what? I need to tell you guys a little scenario, because someone posted, aren't there tons of agencies that handle strategy as well? Some do, a lot say they do, and some of them don't do it well. I was hired, I guess a few months ago, to help with a big content marketing campaign for a major
industry company, and I can't name any details, but I was found through an agency, and the agency got together with me and said, yep, we have this big campaign. There's a big trade show coming up. We're going to need all these materials. And I said, do you have a creative brief or a strategy? And the person said to me, what is a creative brief now?
Yeah.
So I was like, we cannot assume, people, that all agencies have it going on. Sometimes,
and a lot of agencies are serving, they're charging 20 grand for this. But think about it this way, because I get that concern, but it's really not a concern.
right.
People are looking for freelance writers to create content constantly. In fact, the number one thing I hear are, I can't find good writers. Every one of those people need a strategy, right? Now, if they somehow have a documented strategy already, your first step is then to review that. And then based on this framework, say, okay, we can punch this up in several key areas, because you're really vague here with the demographics and just the topic. That's not the heart and soul of what your ideal prospect really is. So even if they think they've got a great strategy, there's room to add value upfront by refining that and then proceeding with the engagement. So it's kind of a fallacy to say there's these super agencies that are going to take all this business. If that were the case, it would have already happened, because you've got all these people searching for writers to create content. They just don't know what they need until you educate them on how you do a strategy first content engagement.
Okay. Let's see now. Sandra, I'm looking for statistics on how many hours a business owner spends on writing posts and articles, and then plus the time it takes to strategies. One statistic says it's 15 hours a month, which seems light to me. Do you have any insight on that?
So we're talking about business owners who create their own content?
I think so.
Yeah. It depends. In my world, all the entrepreneurs that start businesses are content creators, and then they eventually shift content creation to other staff as the organization grows. So, but that's not normal. And that the entrepreneurial content world, or the content entrepreneur, certainly has grown over the last 15 years, but it's not the norm. Most people can't write an email, much less create compelling content. So I don't know that you're going to find any viable statistics on that are indicative of reality out there. You may be getting, you'll get people who teach blogging will tell you how long they spend on a blog post, but that's not the world you're going after, right? You're going after the people who not only don't understand how to craft a viable content marketing strategy, they couldn't implement it anyway, unless they hire someone like you. That's the whole thing. It's like a flywheel of wins for the client, but also for you.
Okay. Erica, hi, Erica, has a great question. How do you know if a potential client actually needs help with their strategy? So let's say you already have a client you're writing for. Are there flags that come flailing that tell you, well, you know what? We should back up and do a strategy.
Well, if you're already writing for them and you never asked, who are we trying to reach here specifically, and they don't have a highly detailed answer that involves things like core values and how they see the world and things like that, they need a strategy. So if you're already working for someone, that's it's all too common. So I'm not going to say, it's a red flag or anything, but it is, they're getting you to write stuff. And what was the criteria by which you got started? How did you know what they wanted you to write?
Mm-hmm.
Those are how you figure it out. But with a new client engagement, you just ask.
Right.
I mean, you are effectively interviewing them at the beginning of the engagement. You're like, look, this is what I need to do my job. And you start going through, I'd really like to talk about, what's the founding story? How did this company come into being? I'd like to talk to some of your clients to get a feel for the language they use when describing their problem and the solution you provide. Do you have a persona that you give your writers to write to? If all of these answers are no or a blank stare, they don't have a strategy.
Right.
And more often than not, that's exactly what you're going to get. And then it comes down to you saying, well, this is what we got to do. Here's the job, right? You're defining your role by simply saying, I can't create the kind of content that's going to lead to your business growth without understanding these elements. I need to know why you do what you do. I need to know who we're talking to, what they need in order to do business with you, and how best to communicate with them.
Okay. Now, this is an interesting question. How is this role different, the content marketing strategist, from being a fractional CMO? And for those who've never heard that phrase before, a fractional CMO is basically a chief marketing officer for a company that might get hired for as a contractor who is their VP of content, for example. But it's a part-time gig. That person is still a contractor, not an employee. And that is a role that's out there now, where Brian might be a fractional CMO to 10 different companies. I don't know. But how would this be different from that? Is it just a contractual arrangement?
That's a great question, because any fractional CMO or any full-time CMO would enter an organization and ask these exact questions. Give me everything we have as far as our marketing strategy. And if they had nothing or something that was insufficient, that would be where she or he starts, by creating a documented content marketing strategy. So a fractional CMO often comes in and does exactly that. The general difference being that a fractional CMO will generally come in, devise a strategy, and then implement with in-house staff because it's an organization that has that. If they don't, the fractional CMO can make hiring recommendations for key roles to implement within the organization, or they can then hire freelancers to implement it. Most of the time, a fractional CMO does not create content. So a strategist at the freelance level is usually also a writer. You're basically creating the parameters of your strategic role within that company, and then you get paid to continue to execute on it. So it's really a matter of degree, and it's usually the type of organization that you're dealing with. But that's a great question, because you kind of nailed, it's the same necessary function, but it may just differ according to the size of the organization.
Okay, perfect. We have a couple of questions that are a little bit off topic, but still your wisdom on them or your insights on them would be very interesting, I think. One of them is, I heard on the news last night that one of the subscription channels, like Netflix, will soon be testing ads on their platforms. Can you comment on this and what this means for writers? If you feel like weighing in.
Those advertisements will just be like advertisements you see on Amazon or network TV or anywhere else. I'm not sure that they would necessarily have any different impact on writers at all.
Right. I was thinking the same thing, but it was asked, so I thought I'd bring it up. Here's another question for Maureen. How do you, it's about AI. How do you deal with citations and sources from AI and verifying that they're correct?
That's a good old fashioned research. It's kind of like treat AI like you do the main body of a Wikipedia article. You go there, you look for information, and then you go down to the footnotes and you follow the source material to find out if Wikipedia is telling the truth. With AI, though, you basically have to fact check the whole thing, unless you're already kind of a subject matter expert in the area and you're just using AI in order to generate an outline or give you a first draft. And you're like, if you see something that's clearly wrong, you know better. Otherwise, That is an issue right now. Now, both Bing and Google are moving towards citation-based models where they're going to do that for you, which brings it up to your average Wikipedia article where you're able to follow the links. I know there are too many people who don't bother to fact check before AI came along. So it's, again, none of these are new problems. They're just accelerated and expanded by the fact that we've got robots that can crank out content.
Yep. Now back to your program here. DJ asked, and maybe others have this question too. I'm fairly new to AWAI. I'm learning how to write blog posts, and I'm still going through the AWAI method, which is our foundation program, and the 21-day challenge via LinkedIn. So content marketing might seem too advanced, or is it a good time to dive on into that? Content marketing strategy, that is.
Oh yeah, it's the only said content marketing, because I was about to say create effective blog posts. That's content marketing.
I know.
So content marketing strategy, I get the sense that, oh, I need to learn how to somehow to write content before I learn how to create effective content. It's the cart before the horse. I understand that that's the world we live in. But if I had my way, everyone would learn strategy first, because even if you're not a writer, even if you don't do the writing itself, you have to have a strategy. Like Pam said earlier, what's a creative brief? And you're just like, oh my gosh, how do you understand how to give direction to the people you hire to implement if you don't understand your objective and who you're talking to and how you're going to get there? So I definitely don't want to push you into anything you're not ready for, but strategy first is a thing, because you can't effectively write content without a strategy. You can create something that reads nice, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, again, going back to that continuum. And is it going to add to the audience? Is it going to move them down the buyer's journey path? Are they going to click through and read your offer? Are they going to call or email or whip out their credit card? These are the things that matter more than how we string words together. I'm the biggest advocate for writers out there, but this is business and we have to sell people what they want, and we can't be effective if we don't have an idea of what we're doing.
And I think that what you're going to be presenting will strengthen anything you write, anything you learn to write, because everything does start with those four things, or the three things. Who are you talking to? What is the offer? Why would they stick around? And then where do you reach them? I think it's a great way to start. So I'm with you on that. Okay, let's see. We've got Rebecca saying, when will the course be offered? I think we have everything in that link that you need to know there. Or our member success team can answer that. Let's see. Yeah, I'm just trying to go through these questions, see if there's anything else. If you have any questions as a COS member, please contact member success team, because Brian and I don't necessarily have the answer to that. Let's see. James says, if everyone's using AI, yeah, we talked about this at the beginning. If everyone is using AI for idea generation, won't they all be using the same 10 ideas on blah, blah, blah? So if you're in a competitive niche, won't everyone end up writing? Yes, and that's why clients need content marketing strategists to separate the client from that in unique, fresh, super helpful, amazing ways. So they won't sound like everybody else.
Yeah, I got to say, James, I've never used AI for idea generation, because I create a strategy and it tells me exactly step by step by step what I need to write about next. I think I remember during the early days of blogging, the biggest reason people gave up is, I don't know what to write this week. When I started Copyblogger, I had 10 articles planned in a row on my buyer's journey roadmap because I knew what people needed because I took the time to create a strategy in the first place. I don't like to be critical of AI because, as I said earlier, it's going to do nothing but get better. But it's only as good as the people who use it. And sad to say, a lot of people who use AI are lazy. And laziness is not a reason to use a tool. A tool should augment your own creativity and your own strategy to just take it to the next level. Now, that's just my opinion on how it should work. But yeah, I don't use AI for idea generation unless I know nothing about a topic, which is pretty rare because that wouldn't be very smart to enter into any niche where I don't understand what I'm talking about.
Right. Which is why I don't do any Bitcoin writing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
Forget it. All right. Well, gosh, I think we have answered every question that you guys have asked Brian, and I just love this angle, and it'll make you a smarter writer. It'll make you a more valuable writer to clients. It'll elevate your status and your money potential because you're a consultant and a guide that really will impact a client's business results. And that's huge. So if you have any parting words, Brian, I think we're good to go. If you're interested in his program, please, there's the link right there at the bottom of this slide. Go check it out and see if it's right for you. But Brian, any parting words?
Just remember that the thing that will truly make your career is your client's success, because after a while, it's just self-perpetuating. When you've got enough happy people giving you testimonials, case studies, referring you to others, you're set, right? But cranking out some AI content for a client at $300 a blog post, if you're lucky, is not the way to do that, because you now know that that's not what's going to lead to success for them. So your success first starts with strategy in order to attract clients, and then your success grows exponentially with their success. And that's just good old-fashioned business. Nothing really modern about that, but sometimes I think we lose sight of things with all the rapid change that we're experiencing. It's still about doing excellent work for your clients and getting more and better clients from there.
Yep, and bringing in dollars for them. So, all right, with that, thank you so much, Brian. Thank you for everybody behind the scenes who were running the show here. And thank you guys for being here and listening in and asking brilliant questions. I hope you do check out the Brian Clark method, and we will see you next time inside AWAI. Have a great day. Thanks again, Brian.
Thank you.
Bye.